Well, joining me in the studio now is Dr. Rasmus Nilsson, a teaching fellow in Russian foreign policy at University College London. Rasmus, good to have you with us. So let's start with that arms deal. I mean, that's quite a significant deal between Turkey and Russia. It's not gone down well with Turkey's NATO allies.
No, it hasn't. I mean, I don't think that NATO is particularly worried about the military implications of this. However, it does, of course, very strongly indicate the lack of trust that has been building between Turkey and NATO, between Russia and NATO as well, of course.
And that's interesting. I mean, the relationship between Moscow and Ankara has improved really fast since the problems of 2015. Is that in part due to Turkey's problems with the West?
Well,
Russia's problems with the West?
Well, exactly, yes, absolutely. I think by saying that, though, we must also acknowledge that this is a matter of, it's an alliance of convenience, if you like, for Turkey and for Russia. Tactically, they can use each other now, partly because both of them feel somewhat alienated by the West. Strategically, in the medium to longer term, it is not clear, certainly not to me, that Russia and Turkey will somehow form an alliance against the West or whatever we've heard. That I don't see signs of yet.
But there is a strategic partnership there at the moment. How useful does Turkey find Russia's influence? For example, the issues around this northern Iraq referendum that Turkey finds very problematic. Russia, of course, has good relations with the Iraqi Kurdish region.
Well, they do, but Russia also has, I mean, the Russian leadership has a long-standing distrust of anything that can threaten existing states, existing regimes, and therefore it would not, and I think that the Russian government has been quite clear about this, it would not be in their interest to see a splitting up of any states in the Middle East. And there, of course, they can find quite common ground with the Turks.
As far as Syria goes, Ankara and Moscow have been cooperating militarily and strategically, and they've come up with the de-escalation zones, which they will obviously be talking about how to enforce that. How do you see that partnership going forward, though, in terms of a long-term solution for Syria?
Well, I think that the process here is very important for both parties. I mean, both Russia and Turkey like this institutionalization of the conflict and of the situation. They like this mutual, if you like, together with Iran, mutual hegemony over the situation, over the region. Whether that can continue is difficult to say. I mean, there are so many unknowns. There's, for instance, as you mentioned, the Kurdish factor. There's the American factor. I mean, with the current American administration, it is a bit difficult sometimes to find out what their coming foreign policy will be. There is, of course, the issue of the Gulf states, and we have seen before that, for instance, Turkey and Russia do not always have the same interests in the region, for instance, in relation to what happened in Egypt a few years back. So all of these things can come in and influence matters. So I think it's a bit early to say that Turkey and Russia in the longer run can form a stable relationship here. I mean, Iran may well be more important for Russia in the medium term than Turkey is.
Just a final view on how Washington will view this relationship between Russia and Turkey. Turkey, of course, at odds with Washington over Washington's support of the YPG groups on the ground in Syria. So how will Washington be looking at this meeting between Erdogan and Putin?
Well, right now, I mean, what should happen is, right now, Washington has a lot of things on its plate. I mean, in foreign policy, primarily, of course, North Korea. So what should happen is that Washington should adopt a wait-and-see policy. That would very much be in the American interest right now. Whether they will do that, well, we will have to see. We will have to see if there are any pronunciations from Donald Trump, for instance, regarding Iran, which can very certainly create some disturbance in the local picture in the Middle East.
Interesting stuff there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here in the studio, Dr. Rasmus Nilsson there.